I am like you. You have fears, I have fears.
Yeah.
I've got desires, you have desires, right? I mean, you've got plans, I've got plans. You are just like me,
Okay.
right? And you could be from anywhere in the world. And it's a good idea to remind ourselves that the people that we interact with are just like us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Furiously Curious Show. I'm your host, Calvin Rettenberg. This is a show that learns about people's worldviews, beliefs, and stories from people around the world. How I grew up and what I was taught shaped me and what I believe. Now I want to learn about other people's stories, beliefs, worldviews, and how they got there. Today on the show, we have Steve Hamilton Clark. Steve is a leadership coach, mentor, and board advisor, and runs a company called the 18th Camel Coaching and Consulting. He coaches clients from around the world, from Bangladesh, Canada, Egypt, England, Greece, Portugal, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, the United Arab Emirates, and the USA. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kyle. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. I love your company name. How did you come up with that?
Good question. I'd spent a long time in the Middle East, born in the Middle East, and half my life there.
Yeah.
So I wanted something Middle Eastern for start.
So that's the camel?
So there's the camel piece.
Yeah.
And then I wanted something that was fun.
Yeah.
I wanted something memorable.
Yeah.
And I wanted something that had a story. So it wasn't too demanding. And I did a Google search. And I did it with my parents, in fact. And in the morning, in a 3-hour search, found the story about the 18th camel, which completely captures the essence of what I do. And if you'll indulge me, I'll actually share the story with you of the 18th camel. Okay, so bit of maths involved, and you don't have to be a mathematician to figure it out. I'll work it out with you.
Okay, sounds good.
So basically based on an old Egyptian fable of an Egyptian old fellow passes away and leaves his inheritance to his 3 sons. And the inheritance is 17 camels. And to his eldest son, he leaves half. To his middle son, he leaves a third. And to his youngest son, he leaves a 9th. Now, you don't have to be a mathematician to figure out that you can't divide those numbers into 17. Anyway, the 3 boys really wanted to honor the father's wishes. And so they started talking about it. And then they realized it was becoming difficult, 2 against 1, 1 against 1. And then, kind of like in a corporate environment where companies can go into silos.
Yeah.
And start really getting quite aggressive between them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there was a wise woman, the coach, if you will, of the town or village that showed up, heard about these boys, and asked if she could help.
Yeah.
And so she asked a lot of questions. And at the end, she said, boys, what if I gave you one of my camels? And the 3 boys looked at her and said, wow, you do that for us? And she said, sure. And so the eldest son got half the camels. So he got 9. The middle son got a third, so he got 6. And the eldest son got a 9th. He got 2. 9 plus 6 is 15, plus 2 is 17. And so the coach, the elderly wise woman, walked home with her camel, the 18th camel. And that's who I am, the 18th camel. Okay. And why it captures the essence of what I do is that there's a solution to everything, even if it's not obvious in the moment.
Interesting.
Right? And that's what I do. I help work with people to identify blind spots, hold the mirror up to them, and see things and find solutions that lie within them, but they don't see them yet.
Yeah. Ask them questions.
So what do you think? Do you like the story?
Yeah, that is a cool story. Okay. I don't think most companies in their names don't have that nice of a story.
Right.
Not the one. Yeah, so that's cool. So why did you get into coaching?
Another great question. I'm going to have to stop saying that. I'm sure you've got lots of great questions.
I hope so.
I was in the corporate world for a long time, C-suite, CEO, built a business in the Middle East and across North Africa, worked in Asia, Africa, a little bit in Europe. And fun job, fun people, had a great time. It was a 24/7 job.
Okay.
And I just wasn't enjoying it anymore.
Okay.
And call it what you will, right? Getting tired of the corporate world, told where to point the cannon, at what angle to point the cannon, when to pull the trigger, and I just wasn't into that anymore. I felt I'd lost my independence.
Okay.
So I did an audit of my strengths and how I got to where I got to, because I'd been relatively successul, I think, in my career.
Did you do that by yourself, or did you coach yourself?
No.
You had a coach?
No, I did it on my own.
Oh, okay. You did.
And did an inventory of my strengths and found out that one of my biggest strengths was people, connecting with people, creating that safe climate, and being able to help people deliver against their values, their purpose, and get the company going to where it needed to go. And I then went to see a coach.
Okay.
We talked around that.
Yeah.
And as a result of that conversation, it became clear that executive coaching, mentor coaching was the way forward. Just leveraging my strengths as a leader.
Yeah.
There aren't too many CEOs and senior leaders who leave their career
And become a coach.
and become executive coaches. So I've got the best of both worlds.
To go the other way, do people become a coach and then go to become a CEO? Does that happen?
I
that
doubt
way?
it.
Okay. So it's rare both ways.
Yeah. Unless they're running their own company, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough. And so, so you wanted to become an executive coach. Do you have to go to school for that? What did you do to you decide? Yes, I think this is what I want to do. What did you do next to get there?
I probably invested close to $50,000.
Wow.
Right, in unlearning.
Okay. Yeah, unlearning.
Unlearning.
Wow.
Right, and I did that over the course of certainly the first 2 years were super intensive.
Okay.
And I've been doing that for the last 5. So every year investing in new course, reading books, new certificates, new learning.
Okay.
It's an ongoing process, like doctors, right?
Yeah.
Just going to stay up to speed with what's going on. And because I like neuroscience, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I like the neuroscience piece, and so I read a lot about that because it's changing all the time.
Okay. So is there like a place you can get certified, like globally certified, or is
Sure,
it like is it by country or?
Ooh, yeah. Certainly in North America, it's the ICF, so International Coach Federation.
Okay.
In Europe, they have something different. They also have the ICF, but they also have European Association of Coaches. I'm not too sure.
Okay.
Where you can get accredited there too.
Okay.
ICF globally is the biggest.
Okay.
So that's where I got accredited.
Yeah. Fascinating. So, what does a leadership coach or a business coach really do? And so I guess talked about I have a coach, stuff like that. But what are they, in essence? What are you doing when you meet with a CEO or any type of business leader and they say, "I want to be coached"?
Right.
Like, do your clients often know what they even mean when they ask that? And what do you actually go and do with your clients?
Cool. So you asked me leadership coach and business coach. I don't do business coaching.
Okay.
So there's a subtlety
Okay.
here.
So what's the difference there?
Well, business coach helps somebody reorganize their business.
Okay,
Looks at the P&Ls, looks at the financials and whatnot.
Okay. Yes.
I'm a leadership coach. I look at the leader within the
Yeah,
person
Okay.
and help bring the best out in them.
Okay.
And quite often, it's because they've reached a point in their career where what got you here won't get you there. So something has to change. So the agendas can be huge and varied. Generally, it's about rediscovering themselves so that they're able to bring their best selves forward again. Generally. I mean, that's the best way I could describe it.
Okay. You said on your website, actually, it says, the effectiveness of the traditional top-down, one-dimensional I leadership model is faltering. In its place is emerging a new generation of we leadership, where the growth of quality leaders at all levels is the number one key to business growth and success. So I want to talk to you about that. And first of all, what is one-dimensional I leadership, and why is it failing?
It's command control, right? There's a CEO.
Yeah.
And then there's the VPs, and then or the senior VPs, the VPs, and then the directors, and then the managers, and everybody else. So pyramid.
Yeah.
And it's collapsing because it doesn't work. People want something different. Millennials have been a key driver behind that. There are also many different generational groups that are coming into play, sort of saying, we want something more than being told what to do. We want to be involved in this business such that we understand its purpose. Like, why do we do what we do? Mm-hmm. And Simon Sinek, he's got, I say, one of the top 4 most viewed YouTube videos is Simon Sinek, I think, in his interview or presentation of why do we do what we do for companies and individuals. And companies are moving away from that hierarchy, and they're moving into nodes, they're moving into leaderless teams. There's a book by Frederick Laloux called Reinventing Organizations, and he talks about teal organizations and the evolution of how organizations are moving to living organisms. So people want to have a say in how they get things done. So imagine having teams where there are no leaders.
I can't imagine that now.
It exists, right?
Yeah.
So it's happening.
But you still need. So you would say, is the role of CEO dying?
No,
Okay. So
it's evolving.
Evolving. Okay.
Right. So you have a look at the U.S. Army. You would think that the U.S. Army's hierarchy. It isn't. It's completely changed, and they have a 90% satisfaction score among the millennials, who make up 80% of the Army, and they've completely revamped the way in which they organize themselves, and so everyone is a leader. They still have ranks. Right. It is very different. Satya Nadella, for example, at Microsoft, when he came into Microsoft, they weren't expecting a lot from him. And yet he transformed the organization from a he shifted from sort of a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, from know-it-alls to learn-it-alls, and he did it by using a coaching leadership style, non-directive leadership style. Weird, right?
Yeah, so what's an example of that? So, 30 years ago, it was more the I leadership, and it was working.
Yeah.
I think 30 years ago.
Oh, rule through fear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. And now you said it's dying. So you give an example of a CEO that has to give a task, or maybe that's already gone wrong. But like practically, what does it look like? What does I look like, and what does we look like?
Right. It'll vary, right? I mean, if you're in an emergency situation, for sure, you're going to tell somebody what to do.
Yep.
Going forward, leaders are asking questions to which they do not have the answers. That's a scary concept for a leader. They're just not used to doing that. So in hierarchical, I-led organizations, the leader has the answer to everything. They're addicted to being right. They're positional in their conversations. Whereas leaders who are more transformational in their orientation, who understand that collaboration and cultivation of teams is important, they ask questions and seek the solution from the other people or co-create them with others.
Interesting.
Now, it takes a bit more time to do sometimes.
Yeah.
Point is that when you found the solution and it's the other person that you're talking to who's found their solution, they take ownership of it and you don't have to follow up as much, if at all.
A lot more bought into it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So there'll be a time investment to save a whole bunch of time later on.
Yeah. Fascinating. So is this, so you say this is happening in the Army. Do you know how that started in the Army?
I don't.
It was just, okay.
You'd have to, I
You
mean,
research
it's
that
very,
more?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have to research that more for you, but I've certainly read a few articles around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what other benefits does it give when a leader is a we leader versus, so you get, of course, the ownership feeling and that it might be your idea or a collaborative idea. It's not,
Right.
you're just not being commanded.
Right.
Does it have financial implications as well when this is happening? Yeah, you say generally it's failing on the I leadership side, which must mean there's other negative impacts. What are the gains that are happening for business leaders? Like why would...
Bottom line. That's
Okay.
it. Right? It just falls to the bottom line. Gallup did a survey back in February, just pre-COVID, for employee engagement scores. Right, so EX, employee engagement, and one of the key factors, they had the highest engagement scores they'd ever seen before, and did some research around it. And there were 4 factors. I can only remember the second one because it's relevant here.
Yeah.
Second one is managers moving from boss to coach. So when engagement scores are up, guess what? People are happier. Happy people means happy clients, means happy bottom line. It's the way it works. So it does get reflected on the bottom line. And companies that have higher employee engagement scores tend to have higher customer satisfaction scores, tend to have higher bottom lines.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
So, so you say the millennials drove this mostly.
They were a contributor.
Contributor
Factor, yeah.
What else, like besides the bottom line and someone realizing, hey, I get way more productivity when my employees are happier, and when they're engaged in the idea or the solutions that need to happen, how else did this evolve? Like, do you know of other things that business leaders started realizing, hey, it's not working this way?
Daniel Goleman, who discovered.
Okay.
I don't know, what would you say, discovered or invented emotional intelligence?
Discovered.
Discovered emotional intelligence. So he wrote a paper back in 2000, Harvard Business Review, and it says leadership that gets results.
Okay.
And he identified 6 leadership styles, one of which was leader as coach.
Okay.
The other ones were democratic leaders, autocratic leaders, pace setting, coercive, and democratic, I think, and then leaders and coaching.
Yeah.
And of those 6 styles, the coaching leadership style is the one that was the least taken up. Why? Because it takes effort, right? It's hard work.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to do it. You
Yeah.
got to change your behavior. You got to ask questions to which you don't have the answers. You got to ask what if questions.
Yeah.
You got to be okay with other people having the answers, and that doesn't come naturally to leaders
Or to people in general, I would say.
or people in general. Absolutely, yeah. So that's where I think it first sort of surfaced,
Okay.
and then the leadership. If you have a look at where coaching started in California, really probably 30, 35 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's all sort of coalescing together. And then you've got the millennials who are the purpose-driven generation.
Yeah.
Give me a reason why I need to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
And I want to be part of something bigger than myself.
Yeah.
It all comes together.
Interesting. So how would you say, if you look at Donald Trump, is he a I or a we?
That's a rhetorical. So in coaching, that would be called a rhetorical question, right? We don't ask questions like that,
Yes.
right? You know the answer already.
Yes, yes.
Right.
No, I think it's interesting. Would you? I'm trying to think of a political leader that actually is more of a we. I wouldn't know.
Well, Arden in New Zealand
Okay.
would be. I think she's one that's just risen to the surface in the best possible way. Yeah.
Interesting. And why do you say that? Do you have an example of that?
She's done a fantastic leadership job of the COVID situation. She's also a mother and happy. She's authentic,
Yeah.
and shows up with her with her child, and totally good with that.
Yeah.
And listen to the people, and is not afraid to ask questions to which she doesn't have the answer.
Yeah. So it seems like a really key element of this is caring about other people just as much as you care about yourself.
Yeah.
Loving.
A key element of what? Sorry.
Of we leadership, loving your neighbor as yourself, basically.
Caring is a big piece, right?
Massive piece.
Well, there are 4 elements to leadership. If I was to break it down in its basics, and this
Okay.
is my point of view,
Okay.
right? There's the head,
Yeah.
there's the heart, there's the human spirit, and then there's the hunger, the passion, the gut, right? I call them the 4 H's.
Okay.
And that's the essence of leader as coach. And so absolutely the heart is all about connection with people, right? Not just communicating, connecting.
Yeah.
My boss, he sort of says, we need to get strategic and emotional alignment, right? The strategy is easy. The emotional alignment, that's the real challenge, right?
Yeah. So can you get emotional alignment with someone without caring about them? That'd be impossible.
I think it'd be very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, you may get caught out.
So it is an element of this generally if you think of a salesperson and they talk with their customers and their customer tells them, hey, my 5-year-old son is going to kindergarten now. If you're a good salesperson, the next time you call that person, you say, how's it going with your 5-year-old son?
Absolutely.
Is it more that we just need to treat the people that work for us as if they're our customers? Because if you, for example, now have an employee that also has a 5-year-old son that's going
A team member.
Yeah, a team member. That's right. Yeah.
Right? Languaging is hugely important.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Right.
To be just as interested, because that brings results. That customer's going to like you more if you also care about their family and their personal life and stuff like that.
Sure.
So is it more in a simplified version treating the people you work with like customers, and that you...
I think it's beyond that. I mean, personally, it's about a deep respect for the human spirit.
Okay.
Right? I am like you. You have fears, I have fears.
Yeah.
I've got desires, you have desires, right? I mean, you've got plans, I've got plans. You are just like me,
Okay.
right? And you could be from anywhere in the world. And it's a good idea to remind ourselves that the people that we interact with are just like us.
Interesting. So you said that one of the 4 H's is the heart and then the human spirit. What's the difference between the heart and the human spirit?
Right. Well, heart's about passion. It's about connection and communication.
Okay.
The human spirit, that's all about curiosity.
Okay.
Right. That's digging deep.
And the hunger is the want for the curiosity?
That's passion and beliefs.
Okay.
Right.
So passion is a key to all of them. You know,
They all interact, right? I mean, the head has lots of neurons, the heart has lots of neurons, the gut, the hunger piece, lots of neurons there,
Yeah.
kind of helping us make our decisions, and then it all sort of coalesces with the human spirit as well that brings us all together.
Mm.
So
Interesting. So you did a lot of work. You grew up in the Middle East. Where were you born?
Dubai.
Dubai. And so now you're here. You work with clients all over the world.
Yeah.
What is the biggest difference, as you would say, to business leaders in the Middle East compared to business leaders here in North America? Is there a difference in culture and how they run their organizations, or is it kind of very similar? Because I know there's big cultural differences.
Right.
Is there also differences in how they lead? From what I understand, it's a lot more family in the Middle East
Right.
oriented and not less caring about only yourself.
Right.
Does that translate also when you work with those business leaders that they're stronger in those areas? Or
It's very hard to make generalizations.
okay,
And because Dubai is so varied culturally, it varies by business, by culture. Right? A lot of the senior leaderships are expatriates, so they're not locals. A lot of the local businesses are headed by local people, local Emiratis or Saudis or Kuwaitis or what have you. And it varies hugely. One thing I can say, they're just like you and me, right? The same needs, right? Need for connection, need for significance, need for certainty, need for adventure. Those basic human needs, we all have
Yeah.
them. They just show up in a different way. And they all want to hit the bottom line, right? And they all realize that aiming, not all of them, a lot of leaders recognize that more and more so now, aiming for the bottom line is going backwards,
okay,
right? Aim for the people, keep the people happy, keep your clients happy, and then the money comes, not the other way around.
yeah, you have to be. That's right. That's a good point. You said in a 27 interview that you were.
Oh my God, where did you find that one?
I found it, but you said rewarding the failure of the people that work for you
Yeah.
is super important. So. Generally, when you screw up, you don't get rewarded for that.
Sure.
You get a rap on the wrists.
Right.
So why is rewarding failure important in an organization for the people that work for you? And do you have an example of that?
Yeah, it's called psychological safety.
Okay.
Right. I mean, Google, and you can look this up. And in fact, people who listen to this, look it up. Right. Google did a 2-year study on the 5 key success factors to teams, and it was called Project Aristotle. So Google's Project Aristotle. You look it up. Tons written on it. And the number one factor to team success: psychological safety. Being able to say, do, and show up in ways without feeling judged or being made small or to be ridiculed. Right? And when you are innovating and creating, which is the only 2 ways really to drive companies forward, have a look at what Tim's done here, for example. I mean, he's really created and innovated and taking it to a whole new level for his studio. You're going to make mistakes along the way. Right? And so if people fear making mistakes when they're innovating and creating, your business isn't going to go as far as it could. So rewarding failure. So I do have an example. This is an older one, but back in 2008-9, global economic crisis, always seem to be going through some crisis. And we were looking for revenue. We took on a job that required geomapping, just to be able to, eventually it was to help in terms of transit routes. And we had no experience doing that. But we took the job on because it was big and we needed new clients and we needed revenue. And the team that worked on it failed. Actually, they didn't deliver on time. I had to call the CEO of the client, explain what had happened. Regret. I was really sorry, explain what happened, and then with him found a remedy. And so we delivered the project about 4 months late. We took a big penalty. And I found out later on that of all the companies that they had asked to do this, because they had 4 different companies, we were the only one who delivered. Right. Now, they took on the project, had no experience doing it, gave their all for it. One of them, in fact, ended up with an eye infection because he was spending so much time on the computers, doing we didn't have Google Maps back in 2009 the way we have it today. So it took a lot of effort. And so what I did is I got them a limo, drove them down to Abu Dhabi, which is where we were doing the work, got a helicopter, and took them up into a helicopter. And we flew over. I wasn't with them. They went on their own. They flew over Abu Dhabi just to see. They'd never been in a helicopter before, and to see where they'd been mapping for the last sort of 8 months. And that's an example. I got into a little bit of trouble for that. How can you spend money doing a limousine, helicopters, rewarding people when we lost money on the project? Reality is that client came back with several more projects going forward, which had the margins.
Nice. But also, I guess I'm more curious about the employees that you gave this ride to.
Right.
So they obviously are. You gave them confidence. Did they?
Absolutely. They're the ones that took on the projects coming up again. There were similar projects, and they aced them. So yeah, that you're buying in. It's okay to fail. It's just not okay to fail at the same thing more than twice.
Twice?
Right.
That's the number?
Not learning then, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to try and fail. Absolutely. So there's a personal example. If you go back in the books of time, you have a look at Coke when it was launched in the sort of the mid 80s. They came out with a new Coke. I forgot what it was. Okay. And it failed. But the fellow who launched it actually, I believe, went on to bigger and better things within Coke.
So failing is progression.
Failing, yeah, that's how you learn, right?
Yeah. So the power of coaching, that's a phrase that I've seen thrown around before, stuff like that. When you hear that, the power of coaching, what do you think of, and what is that?
So the power of coaching. I think the real power of coaching is being present with somebody, like just there for them, and being able to find solutions with them. Right. Solutions lie when for anything when it comes to leaderships. A lot of the wisdom lies within the person, and it's about bringing it to the surface. So that's the power of coaching. The power of coaching is also the ability to let go. Right. And a lot of people come into sports and use sports as coaching. It is a bit that, but we're not telling them, how to do the moves. We might experiment together, role plays and whatnot, and then, off you go. You got to go and make it happen. And the power of coaching really is bubbling things up to the surface. So when I have my coaching sessions one-on-one, we bring a lot of things up to the surface. The real learning happens in between coaching sessions when you start doing things differently, right? Adaptive leadership styles, taking on new ways of communicating, start journaling, for example, right? So that's where the real power of coaching comes in.
So would you say if a business leader, CEO, or someone else in the business rankings, that they all need a coach, or do you think it's I guess we'll start there. I think that'd be a really strong statement. They all need a coach.
Yeah, everybody needs a coach. I have a coach.
You think everyone needs a coach?
I have a coach.
Okay.
In fact, I have 2 coaches. Right. I mean, we're really, really good at seeing how other people need to change and how they show up and what they need to do and lose weight and this and that. We're just really bad at seeing that in ourselves. All right. And Daniel Kahneman, who psychologist, I guess, but he won the Nobel Prize for Economics for his work on how the brain works, thinking fast and slow, system 1 thinking, system 2 thinking. And all the knowledge that we have is associative knowledge built over time. We associate different things, different experiences to something. And because of that, we have blind spots. So everybody needs a coach.
So that concept.
Thank God for that, by the way. Thank God for that bias, that the fact that we can't see what we need to change about ourselves, or we're very poor at doing it. Otherwise, I'd be out of a job.
That's a fair point.
So fair. Thank you, Daniel Kahneman, for proving that coaches are here to add
Giving
value.
Steve a job.
Steve a job, yeah.
So that concept of seeing fault in other people's and not yourself, you can translate that to many different areas of life. Then, so would you also say that, for example, if you're in a marriage, everyone should go for marriage counseling, and for whatever you're in, because that's kind of the same premise.
Right. So that's an interesting question. I'm going to think about that for a minute. Should everybody go for marriage counseling? Everybody needs to talk. So if you're in a conversation with your spouse, what kind of conversation are you having? You're having transactional conversations, positional, transformational, right? What are you talking about? Right? As we evolve over time, our values evolve as well. Death in the family changes our values. Birth in the family changes values. A war changes values. I mean, so what are you talking about? So as long as you're having open conversations with each other and growing together, probably don't need marriage counseling. But leaders, it's lonely at the top, right? There's not a lot of people they can talk to, up or down. So the coaching piece is a great outlet for them to be able to explore new ideas. If it was co-CEOs, maybe it'd be different. They wouldn't need a coach.
And they could bounce it off each other if it's a healthy relationship.
If it's a healthy relationship, and when it's a healthy relationship, yeah. And being willing to have those difficult conversations.
Yeah. So we live in a super polarized time right now politically, and there's a lot of turmoil going on and stuff like that, with COVID and Black Lives Matter and the elections and all the things like that.
Right.
When you look at that from as a coach, do you think a lot of the things that you're being curious and trying to learn from the ideas within someone and try to pull it out of them, do you think that's also not happening in society as a whole, that we're not being we're not asking each other questions anymore, we're just giving our opinion to each other and not pulling it out?
We could go political here, couldn't we?
We could.
We could. I suppose you're talking about democracy in some respects, right? And the corruption of democracies around the world. I mean, The Economist published an interesting article about democracies around the world some 4, 5, 6 months ago, and they mapped it out. Canada has a democracy, and it's sort of rated, I forgot what the color scheme they used, but it was rated as a full democracy. United States wasn't. Right. So, yeah, you've got to ask some questions around what's happening around curiosity and the ability to speak freely and psychological safety around being able to do that without being pointed a finger at and made to feel unsafe. So, yeah.
So, because what I'm trying to do is, like, I think of my neighbor, for example. And this is hypothetical because I've actually never talked to my neighbor about these things. But let's say you have a completely different viewpoint than him on something, and I want to get him on my side.
Right.
Just like I would if I have another team member that I want to get on my side with my idea. But I'm going to do it in the way of asking questions. Mm-hmm. I feel like there comes to a certain point where you're going to have to say, no, this is what I think is right, or this is what I believe, or like how much of it is continually just asking questions and thoughts, and versus like it seems like at some point you have to just say no, that this is
okay. So we're talking two different things here, right?
I'm trying to draw the parallel line. So you're saying there's no parallel line?
I'm not sure that I think there's a common theme, perhaps. I'm not seeing the parallels, because from a coaching perspective, we come into leaders and they want to go further. They want to have greater impact. I mean, it's ultimately what leadership's about. It's having more impact in their role. So how do they need to change to be able to have a positive influence on the rest of the organization? All right. In a political sphere, you're talking about convincing your neighbor of something different. That's a different skill set, right? And a different and is agenda driven.
But right? if you're a CEO and you want your team and you have an agenda,
right,
of what you want to get done,
right,
and you need to get your team on board,
right,
that would be that's also agenda driven, no?
It can be, and there's an assumption here too, and this is where purpose starts coming into play and values, right? companies are registered. When you register a company, and if you ever want to sue a company, it's like suing a person. So companies really are, in fact, are people, funnily enough, legally. And they have a mission statement. They have a purpose statement now. They've got values. So if you're working for an organization, there's a reason you're working there. There's a reason you work at Greenpeace, or there's a reason you work at maybe Starbucks or Zappos or, Tesla, right? So already there's an affinity for working there, one assumes, okay? There's an overlap of values. Your neighbor may not have the same values as you. So it's a different story. So if I'm a leader in an organization and we're taking the company into a certain direction, this is about vision. This is about living the core values and bringing those alive and making sure that the core values that the people have, there's sufficient overlap, that there's enough heart connection, right? That may not be the case with your neighbor. You may have completely different values, in which case you're unlikely to be working together.
Makes sense. Okay.
Right? Same thing with marriage, right? Got enough values that overlap, chances are you're going to work out okay.
To make sure you have a lot of values that overlap.
Yeah,
you get started.
especially, and in fact, I put on YouTube, on LinkedIn, I posted something just yesterday, in fact. The trick to values, if you're looking for a quick way of finding out what values are for an organization or people, where do they spend their time, money, and energy? Time, money, and energy. So when I was interacting with people, I always take notes about where are they spending their time, money, and energy. Right? Because I know that's what's important to them. What do you do over the weekend, Kyle? How do you spend your time? If I'm bumping into you at work and I'm always asking you how you did over the weekend, I'm listening for where is he spending his time, money, and energy? Family, sports, I don't know, travel, who knows? And that gives me a good idea of what your values are. And it makes me a more effective leader when I'm able to tie in, strategy to people's values.
Fascinating stuff. So I think this started around 10 years ago. I could be wrong on this, but where you've seen a lot of companies try to make their companies more modern. So they got big bean bags to sit in, and sleeping pods, and really modern, and this and that. Is that tied into what you do as a coach, or is that because of what I think is happening is they think that's going to fix the millennials and motivate them, when actually, from what I understand, that actually doesn't help at all. You actually have to care and get to the heart piece, and those outward things don't matter that much.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
It's about connection. We're human beings. We're not human doings. Right? We're being, and it's all about being with others. We're all about connection. Right? Have a look at COVID. Right? We're struggling, staying at home, because we're about connection. So it is all about connection. You can have all the bean bags you want in the world. If the coach or the leaders aren't connecting, and people within the organization aren't connecting with each other effectively, then there's going to be an issue. I can't remember where I read it. I think it was a Harvard Business Review, but it was something along the lines of 75% of all work is done through conversations. Right? So again, the leadership work that I do is all about what kind of conversations you're having with people.
Powerful.
Yeah. Imagine that, 75% of all work is done through conversations.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Do you notice with COVID going on and a lot more stuff moving over to Zoom, we're losing connection?
I don't have an opinion on that yet.
Business leaders are losing connection with their.
I think they reconnected with themselves better.
Okay.
Right. The gift of COVID, if I can, because it's a horrible thing that's going on. I mean, there is an opportunity and gift in everything. Is the fact that a lot of leaders had to rise up and find out who they really were. Scary as hell, and I suspect many failed or got too scared. The others really discovered who they are and brought it to the table and brought their teams closer together as a result.
So what does that mean? That would they have to face themselves? And what? We have an example of that one.
Well, so if I was to throw you out of your house tomorrow because you're bankrupt, let me tell you, your views on life are going to change pretty dramatically, right? You're going to discover what you're really capable of.
Okay, yeah.
That's what COVID did. It took away
The comfort.
whatever you want to call comfort. But it took away the norm and forced people to behave in a different way. It forced them to look inside and say, how do I show up? What is the energy I need to bring here, right? What's really important? My people, right? And everybody's scared. Uncertainty is a scary thing for us.
In a way, it's a troop rally or two because you all come together and say, we're going to fight this together.
Right. So it can be a rallying call as well.
I'm curious, as a coach and knowing Simon.
Curious. This is great, Kyle.
As a coach and Simon, knowing Simon Zenek's stuff, his why stuff. What is your why? What gets you fired up as a coach?
So I do a lot of work with leaders in terms of helping them create a purpose to impact statement. And I've got mine. And purpose impact statements only need to mean something to you. It doesn't have to mean anything to anybody else. It's really quite personal. And mine is about fun adventure and discovering aha moments with others, right? And there's a bit of Captain Morgan. Captain Morgan from the rum bottles a little bit. But it's the whole concept. It's not the rum piece. It's the captain piece, the captain of the ship, the willing to leave sight of shore to discover new things and be okay with it and being able to let go of the known to discover the unknown. That's part of who I am as a leader, as coach, and as a leader. And the other piece is discovering aha moments with others, right? Really bringing that up, creating an awareness around something they kind of maybe had a feeling around or didn't know, and then an honesty around that in terms of accepting it. It's like, wow, that's what's happening. And then translating that into a new form of action. So, aha. So that's my purpose. I did that as a CEO and I do it as a coach, right? So it doesn't matter what title you have. You can align what you do and how you show up. You can align that to your purpose. And I've done that. And successful leaders do that.
Help the people that work for them get that aha moment as well.
Right.
Yeah.
There are three things really, the fundamentals within the leadership piece. It's when you're leadership's about making decisions with and for others, with others more and more. But it's, if you're making decisions that are aligned to your purpose, that honor your values, and then action your inner wisdom as a leader, you're going to make a lot more better decisions than you would if you weren't aligned to honoring and actioning your inner wisdom. That's what coaching's about. It's helping people find that and then honor it. So I'm sounding really passionate here.
It's good.
Yeah, okay.
So for the people listening that lead people right now,
Right.
or if it's whatever type of leading it is, and they're not familiar with coaching and this new we leadership, they're kind of apprehensive to it. What would you tell them in a nutshell to consider, or to go read, or to be open to?
So I'm not sure what the question is. So
Yeah, so I guess
I'm going to ask you a coaching question. Is can you bottom line your question for me?
I guess in a nutshell, you meet a business leader and they say, I'm struggling.
Right.
My people aren't coming on board, or they saying, you know what, the way I've done it as an I-type leader has always been working.
Right. Until now.
Yeah, but you come across them and say, well, I think you're gonna increase your bottom line even more if you do X.
Yeah. So I don't tell people how to do stuff. Yeah. Sorry. What's your question? I'm interrupting you, Kyle. Being really rude, uncoach-like.
I don't find it that rude, so you're good. But yeah, so what would you tell them in a nutshell to consider? Or as they say, okay, I hear what you do, Steve. I don't believe it.
Right.
What would you say? Well, is there a resource you would say? Okay, go watch this and do that, or go get a coach for one session.
Get curious, man. What is it you don't believe? And then take the conversation from there and get curious, and be unattached to the outcome of the conversation. That's what I would do. That's what I do.
I love that. I think that's really important.
Get curious.
Yeah.
Sometimes I put an explicitive or whatever word in there too. Get curious.
Fair enough. Cool. I really appreciate you doing this. This is really insightful, and I hope people do spend more time on this. I think from what I've read
It
about
sounds like it's the end of our talk.
It
Carl.
is.
Is it? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Unless there's something else that you think is really important that we should.
You ask me a question, I'll try and answer it.
Okay, so again, maybe one more thing,
Okay.
which we touched on briefly, I think already, but leader as coach.
Right.
Explain that.
Head, heart,
The 4 H's.
4 H's. I mean, I set up a coach training institute called the Henke Institute with 2 partners out of Luxembourg.
Okay.
And that's the core of our model, right? That's the basis of it. So when and a lot of leaders are in their heads. They're very rational driven, which works, important. Facts are important. You need the human element too, in terms of the emotion. So head and heart, you got to get that right balance. You can look it up. The psychological piece behind that, it's called the seesaw effect. Got to get the right balance between head and heart to make the right decisions. You also need to have respect for the human spirit, and you also need to have that hunger, that passion, that why.
Yeah.
So that's at the core. That's leader as coach in a nutshell.
And it takes a lot of work, I guess, to understand that as well, because there's a lot of business leaders that start at the bottom of a business and they work themselves up and made a big company, whatever it is.
Sure.
But their expertise is maybe the product and not the people.
Yeah, okay.
But that's what I mean is that they need to learn how to lead. They might know how to weld or put a computer together or grow plants or something like that, but they don't know how to lead people. It's a whole other skill set.
It's a different skill set, yeah. And I mean, if I was to leave you with a final thought for leaders and yourself, ultimately the ultimate aim for many is wisdom. Right, you always see the old wise man in the movie and the respect. And it's wisdom. It's about becoming wiser and how we show up, our energy, our impact on the world, becoming wiser. And yet we're so focused on learning all the time. And so if I was to leave you with a thought, which is sort of a Zen proverb, which is all about knowledge is learning something every day, wisdom is letting go of something every day. And a lot of the work I do with my leaders is learning to let go, to make room for more stuff.
Would you let go today?
Good question. I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Right? I think, if I was to, I told you I got up at 4:30 this morning because I was working with some clients in the UK, in Dubai. And I let go of just feeling sorry for myself in terms of being tired. Right, tonight's 7 or whatever it is now, 8 in the evening. I think I just let go of that feeling. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good shower helps as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Cold shower. I appreciate you doing this. I think it's important stuff, and I encourage people to go find your website.
Yeah.
And if they're looking for coaching, to reach out to you, but maybe not you or somebody else, because I think
absolutely
it's going to make businesses a better place to work and employees happier and more successful. So
and good on you for being fiercely curious. I mean, that is the essence of the human spirit, Kyle. And I just want to take my hat off to you and acknowledge you for that, because without curiosity, what have you got? When you stop becoming curious, you that's where there's not much to life anymore.
Yeah.
And so by being fiercely curious, that's why when you called me out to be on the show, I was delighted. I think you're onto something big, and I wish you a lot of success here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. One of my favorite quotes is, "If everyone thinks the same, no one thinks at all."
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that's really important to be like, well, he thinks differently than I do. So not to say he's wrong, but to figure out why. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
And I think that's super important.
Well, everybody gets to be right, and everybody gets to be wrong. Yeah. All right.
And you also can empathize with someone if you don't understand where they're coming from.
Sure.
They can have a belief, but if you don't know what caused that belief or how they got there, then you can't engage them.
Right.
You can't empathize with them or understand their worldview, and then you're stuck yourself.
Right. And from a leadership perspective, that's learning how to suspend one's judgment. That's a tough one. Or suspend the agenda. So, yeah, I get you.
Nice. Cool.
Stay furiously curious.
I will.
In fact, I think, you know what, Kyle, with your permission, one of our core competencies in coaching is get curious. And I think I'm actually now going to put the word get furiously curious.
Yeah, do it.
Right?
Do it.
Yeah, you good for that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you credit for that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Link the show. And
Yeah,
we're good
I
to
will.
go.
We're good to go.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
brilliant. Real pleasure.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please leave us a 5-star review and tell your friends and family about this show. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow this show on Instagram and Facebook at the handle @FuriouslyCuriousShow.